Oh, really?
Vampire! We take your candy!
Count Dracula.
I am Dracula. And I bid you welcome, Mr. Hunt, to my house. Come in.
Our first award goes to the vampire for most blood drained in a single evening.
The strength of the vampire is that people will not believe in him.
Good evening, YouTube. It has already been a night. I'm going to be honest with you. So I just recorded this entire thing, both video and audio. Some things happened, but all in all, it was okay. Halfway through, the battery died. No problem. I switched out the battery, hit record, kept going. The podcast is edited and uploaded. And then I go to pull over my video to do the YouTube, and the first half that I recorded is gone. Gone. Like Kaiser Soze, gone. So I thought about what can I do, because the whole thing is that the YouTube video is me recording the podcast. So if you listen to the podcast, it's the edited version of the YouTube video. There's no way for me to recreate that. So I thought, forget it. I'm throwing my hands up in the air and I'm going to go upstairs. But then I thought, oh, Lena, your makeup is done. Everything is set up. You need to just go ahead and record the first half again. So this is going to be one of those rare occasions where if you listen to the podcast, it's going to be completely different than this video, the first half, because I completely lost it. So now I'm going to have to re-record the first half. It is what it is, right? It is what it is. So let's just go ahead and do this. I am currently on my second cup of tea now, because here in Pittsburgh we've had all 4 seasons in the last week. Currently it's torrential downpouring outside, so it's kind of wreaked havoc on my sinuses and my throat. So I wanted to say I'm actually drinking vampire tea. Let me tell you, they are not sponsoring me. I just think you should shout out something that is amazing, and this is amazing. So it's called Coffin Nightcap, and it is black tea, apple, and English toffee. Oh, it's so good. And there's no caffeine in it, so it's soothing my throat, so I can now say this all over again, because I've already said it one time, but it's keeping my throat nice. So I'm actually going to link the tea in the description of this video if you guys want to go check it out. I also have Bela Lugosi's Ashes, which is caffeinated, but right now I don't need caffeinated. I'm already frustrated. So let's go ahead and do this. Okay, so now this is just you and me. I'm not recording the it's just us now. So let me give you some updates on what's happening with me. It's been a crazy week. So on TikTok, I'm now above 1,000 followers, which means I can now do lives. So if you go on my channel, if you have TikTok, go check it out. You can get random vampire facts, vampires making the news, vampiric references in unexpected places, goofy videos that I feel like doing, reactions to comments. And then you can also watch my live. So I need you to help me. I need ideas for what my first live event should be. And if I choose your idea, I'm going to tag you in it. So give me ideas for what my first live TikTok event should be. What should the theme be? What should I talk about? What should I do? Go check it out. The other big news is book news. The contract for the 3rd book is signed. So we're kind of off and running. I just signed it, so we're not actively working on it yet, but pretty soon we should be. And for the first time, the manuscript is ready to go. So we might be able to actually work on the cover and the interior simultaneously, which should speed up getting the book out. I would love to have it out in June. I don't think I'll have it in Philadelphia because that is the first weekend of June, and that would really be pushing it, but I will definitely have it at MomentoCon here in Pittsburgh in August. I'm so excited to get it out. If you want to see the cover before anyone else, you need to join my Fanged family. You can just go to lenanazeri.com and join my Fanged family, or you can join my street team. They get to find out things before anyone else. So they get to see the cover of the book before anyone else. They get the release date before anyone else. And they also get to find out what these episodes are going to be about before anyone else. So they have time to watch the material before they listen to the podcast or watch the YouTube videos. So go check that out. It is the first episode of the month. So we pulled the tarot. Obviously, I'm not going to lie to you guys and pretend to pull the tarot all over again because I'm not going to lie to you. So we know that February was telling me to slow down, not work too much, be careful, have some balance. Well, here's the problem. I have 2 jobs, I have 2 kids, 2 animals, I own a house and everything that goes along with that. I go to the gym 3 times a week, and I was getting this 3rd book done. So there really was no taking my foot off the gas in February. So it's one of the few times I've not heeded the recommendation of the tarot. That being said, I was a little nervous about it. I didn't see any like universal consequences so far. Of course, there's times where I'm tired, but I don't really see anything that makes me think like, oh, I should have listened to the tarot. But listen, okay, so I pulled it. And if you go listen to the podcast, you'll hear me shuffle and pull and everything. So I promise I did this organically, but it's the Chariot. So the Chariot actually tells you that you're overcoming something, that a victory is coming to you, to keep focusing, that something big is on the horizon. And at first I thought, well, is it the book? But the book contract came in February. So I'm really excited. So it's funny because February told me like, oh, have work-life balance. But full steam ahead, and now I'm getting the Chariot. So it makes me really excited that something is coming. So if you want to know, and I said it on the podcast and I'll say it here, I think I'm going to carry this around like in my pocket or in my purse or somewhere because I'm so excited to have this card. I think you all know I was disappointed with the February card, but this one I'm very excited about. So if you want to know what this big thing is, when it happens, when it arrives, you know, you have to follow me because it's, see now, and now now the kids are upstairs like doing God only knows what, but I at this point in time I have to get this recording done. So I apologize if they're being loud. By all means, send them hate comments. All right, let's get into it. Let me have a sip of my tea. I think you can hear my voice is unfortunately already done this one time, so it is rare, but it does happen that there is no synopsis for a movie to copy and paste. And I think it's important that we have these synopses for people who haven't seen the movie or saw it a long time ago and can't remember it, or they saw it but they don't know what the heck is going on. So that way you can understand when I review. So this one didn't have a synopsis. So I wrote it myself as I was watching the movie the second time around. So I think I did pretty good, but feel free to comment. Let's go ahead and do this. Pale Blood, 1990. Michael Fury arrives in Los Angeles to investigate a series of mysterious, high-profile murders. And now the heat's gonna kick on. I have to pause for this. It's so loud. So I went upstairs and I turned off the heat because we need to get this done. And if they freeze, they freeze. So let's do this. Michael Fury arrives in Los Angeles to investigate a series of mysterious high-profile murders where the victims appear to have been completely drained of blood. Aiding him in his quest is Lori, a junior member at the investigative firm who is obsessed with the occult, specifically vampires. Unbeknownst to her, Fury is himself a vampire. Meanwhile, local artist Van is working on a new video piece, and he's seen filming different areas of the city, one of them being the most recent crime scene after everyone has left. While he's doing this, Michael is at the same scene, only he is not picked up by the camera, except for a half-a-second glitch where he can be seen. Michael appears behind Van and asks him what he's recording. Van nervously packs up and returns to his place. There he is met by two girls, Jenny and Cherry. They're supposed to film a few scenes for Van's piece, but Jenny changes her mind at the last second and tells Cherry she will meet her at the local bar called Drax. Later at Drax, Jenny is seduced by Michael, who goes back to her place and feeds on her. He leaves her sleeping in bed and visits Lori. We see that Lori's place is full of vampire posters and memorabilia. He leaves and is seen in his apartment preparing for sleep. Lori is back in her apartment meditating and trying to contact the victims in the afterlife to find out who killed them. It's not a terrible idea. Visions of the murders do come, but it's Michael who sees them, seemingly psychically linked to Lori. Jenny awakes the next morning, noticing the bite, but thinks nothing of it. Later that day, Jenny and Cherry are at Van's recording a video for his art piece. Jenny then notices newspaper clippings all about the murders. While they discuss the murders, Jenny states there is no such thing as vampires. Upon editing the stuff he's recorded later, Van notices the fang marks on Jenny's breast and pauses the video. That night, Michael rises and attempts to call on the spirits of the victims, but this time it's Lori who has the visions. He leaves and meets Jenny at Drax. While they're talking, Van and Cherry arrive and approach them. Van recognizes Michael as the man who approached him on the roof and abruptly leaves. Michael asks Jenny about Van. She explains that he's making an erotic video, which she seems embarrassed about. Lori was also at the bar and sees Van's reaction to Michael, so she goes back to the precinct to run a background check, which reveals that Van is involved in just about every paranormal group and also has had several psychotic, drug-induced episodes. In his loft, Van is looking at the footage, the bite on Jenny and the flash of Michael at the crime scene, then comes to the realization that Michael is a real vampire. He believes that Michael is using Jenny to watch him. Lori breaks into Michael's apartment to see if she can learn anything about him, but is caught by Michael. She explains that she's done a computer search on him, and there's nothing, like he doesn't exist. During the conversation, he becomes frustrated and mentions the visions. Lori asks for specifics and reveals that she's the one who conjured them. He doesn't believe her, stating she can't possibly have that ability, so she conjures the visions in front of him. What he sees is a table and screaming. The table later is then revealed to be covered in blood. Then he sees all three victims. Overwhelmed by the visions, he shakes Lori to make her stop, and the last thing he sees is what looks like a man wiping blood off his hands and dragging a dead girl through a doorway to pose her where the last body was found. Lori passes out, and Michael leaves. The next morning, Jenny arrives at Van's to steal footage so Michael can see it, but is caught by Van. He leads her into a room with a big steel autopsy table and reports that he's painted garlic all over the walls to keep a vampire in. He points out cameras in the corner of the room and explains to Jenny that he plans to lure the victim in, record him feeding, and then be famous. He shuts the door, trapping Jenny in the room, and accuses her of working with Michael to catch him, admitting to Jenny that yes, he is the killer, and staged them all to look like vampires so that a real vampire would be attracted to the city. When she accuses him of being crazy, he pulls down her dress, revealing the vampire bite on her chest, and screams, "I'm right." That night, Michael arises in his apartment, and Jenny is seen strapped to the table in Van's torture room. He uses the jaw of a vampire bat to open Jenny's jugular, attaches a tube to the wound to drain her. In his apartment, Michael tries to conjure the ghosts again, and this time his vision shows Jenny, the latest victim. Van explains that he doesn't plan to drain Jenny dry because she needs enough blood to entice Michael to come and feed. Michael arrives at Van's, falling for the trap. He enters the torture room and finds Jenny exsanguinated and dead. He straps her and lays his jacket over her face in mourning as Van watches. Van approaches Michael, admitting to killing all the girls and enjoying it. Michael vamps out but is shot by Van, who pulls Jenny from the room and locks Michael in. Later, Van watches Michael via the camera in the torture room and sees the vampire recover from the gunshots to rise. Low on blood and weak, Michael realizes that he is trapped, seemingly resigning to his fate. Meanwhile, Laurie is at Michael's apartment and finds antique pictures that he is in, as well as several passports that seem to span centuries or more. She meditates, calling on the victims, and sees that Jenny has joined them. This time, she and Michael share the visions, and he begs her to stop, but she doesn't and sees Michael shot. She arrives at Van's to investigate, telling him that she is a friend of Jenny's. He leads her to the torture room, throwing her in to be Michael's victim so he can finally record the vampire feeding. She approaches him, stating that she knows he is a vampire. He begs her to stay away, but she bares her neck and walks into his arms. As Van watches, Laurie turns to the camera to reveal that she too is a vampire. Dun dun dun! Michael feeds on Laurie is back to full strength, easily busting through the door to chase Van, who is no match for one vampire, let alone two. The movie ends with Van in an asylum. The two vampires arrive, but only Van can see them. As the vampires approach Van to what we assume is feed, the camera fades to black. That is the summary of Pale Blood, written by moi. I don't think I did too bad. Let me know in the comments. And this is the moment where the battery died, and I had to switch out the battery, and then apparently the whole first half of this video was wiped. So now the second half that you see will be the original. So it will line up with the podcast. So if you want to know what the differences are between what you just saw and what I originally recorded, you're going to have to go listen to the podcast. Unfortunately, the one thing that got lost was my daughter coming into the room while I was recording and scaring the ever-loving bejesus out of me. So unfortunately, that is lost. That video is lost to time, but I'm sure with the way that things happen that it will happen again. So I'm going to enjoy my vampire tea, and then I'm going to start editing, and I'm going to pick up where the old video started. Okay, YouTube, so if you just noticed an edit, it's because a battery that was completely full when I started died. So logically, I can only assume there's a ghost in the room. I don't know what happened, so we're gonna get back at it. Okay, vampiric references or crossovers. There's really only one I could really think of, which is the bar is called Drax. So I assume that is a reference to Dracula. There are some people in this movie that are in other horrors, but no vampiric crossovers. Nobody in this movie did any other vampire movies. It's rare, but it happens. Trivia. Really only one. When Michael goes to Laurie's apartment, the movie she is watching is Nosferatu. That's the only piece of trivia. Relationship to humans. These vampires exist without most humans knowing they exist. Sadly, vampires in this world are slowly going extinct. And Michael explains that the only other vampires he's been able to find are either, per him, perverts or madmen. So either they're sex fiends or they've gone insane, apparently. Appearance. They appear human. As a matter of fact, they're so human that Michael does not recognize that Laurie is a vampire until the very end. And when they vamp out, there's really just fangs. The only time we see anything differently is when, at the very end, when Michael is cornered and is going to attack Van, he does have fangs and then black eyes. But when any other time you see him vamp out, it's just fangs. Same thing with Lori. She just has fangs. The fangs, I know you're wondering, Lena approved. 2 sharp, retractable canines. Exactly the way I like fangs to be. Blood. Yes, they need blood. And we talked about this in the summary. There's a lot of blood in this movie, especially in the visions. And interesting enough, we don't see this too often, but in this world, vampires can feed from each other. So that's always interesting. When we see that, I always think that that's something to write off. Michael picks up Jenny at the bar, and they do go back to her place where he bites her breast and feeds. Shockingly, she's completely oblivious the next morning and just like shrugs off the vampire bites as one does. Food. We never see him or Lori eat or drink. And I watched this, we'll get to it more in my thoughts, but I watched this back in the early 90s. So when I rewatched it this time, I mistakenly thought that it was going to be a one-time watch and I was just going to take notes throughout. But I watched it and I had to go back and watch it again. So I will tell you, I paid close attention, and Lori is never seen eating or drinking either. And neither one of them is ever seen in the sun. So at least they had nice continuity with that one. Sleep. Listen, this guy has a travel coffin. If you just want to play it long enough to see the travel coffin, on YouTube I'm going to put a picture so you can see it. But I want you to imagine a tent. You know, like when you open up a tent, there's the fabric and then there's the tent poles that you build. Well, he's carrying, when he gets off the plane in the beginning, what looks kind of like a cloth briefcase, but in fact, it unzips. He takes out the poles, puts them all together, slides them into this long rectangular fabric thing, and it becomes a structure. It becomes a coffin, and then he zips it up over his head. I was like, travel coffin. Why didn't I think of that? That is genius. We need to market that, okay? We need to market that. Holy items. So this is never addressed. Interesting enough, the villain at the end does trap the vampire by painting garlic on the wall, and he has crucifixes everywhere. But we never see Michael react to them, nor do we see Lori react to them. It's more the fact that he's shot and bloodless that really is making him weak. It has nothing to do with the crucifixes. I'm pretty sure I didn't see any kind of rules. I did watch it 2 times in a row. We see him go into Jenny's apartment. I'm assuming she invited him in, but we don't see that part. He goes into Lori's apartment, but Lori's another vampire, so he wouldn't need to be invited in. He does walk into Van's apartment at the end when he's looking for Jenny. So I guess he can go anywhere he wants to. We do see him in mirrors. So I never really picked up on any kind of rules for these vampires. Powers. Pretty solid power base, these vampires. So at one point we see him on the street, then there's a wind gust, and then suddenly he's on the roof behind this guy. So when I first watched this, I thought, well, either he can fly or he can teleport. Well, throughout the rest of the movie, we actually see both. We see him fly and we see him teleport. So he has both of those. We do see that he's extremely strong because he is able, the door that he's locked in at the very end, when he's not at full power, there's nothing he can do about it. But once he's fed and he's strong enough, he just kicks out that big steel padlocked door. So we know he's very strong. I have to assume that he has the power of mesmerization. And the reason I say that is because of 2 scenes. One, Jenny wakes up the next morning, looks at the bite mark on her breast, and is like, huh. So he must have wiped the whole feeding, because we see the feeding happen. It's lengthy, so I don't know how she would have blocked that out unless he did it. And then later she's basically like, I love you and I want to be a part of your life and I want to know so much about you. And he looks her in the eyes and says, Jenny, you don't want to ask any questions. And she stops asking questions. So mesmerization, it's a good one. And that's it for powers, unless I missed something. If you guys go watch the movie and you catch something that I missed, please by all means comment and let me know. How are they made? Well, we don't actually know that. We know it's not just a bite because he bites Jenny multiple times and she doesn't turn into a vampire. Now, whether you have to do the full embrace and you have to drink his blood or they're born that way, I don't know. However, he does mention that they are slowly becoming extinct and he's been looking for another vampire. So I have to assume either one, you have to be born a vampire, or two, it is extremely hard to make new ones. Either way, they're about to be extinct. Heartbeat or breathing, this is never addressed. How do they die? Well, I'm happy to say no vampire dies in this movie, so I don't know. I actually have no idea how they die. Hopefully they don't. Good or bad, in this movie, it is the human who's the bad guy, and the vampires are the heroes. I like it. Tropes I love and tropes I hate. Okay, tropes I love. You all know how much I hate the brooding, self-loathing vampire trope, and at first, I thought that's how Michael was being played, but it's not. It's not that he's self-loathing. It's not that he hates his existence. He's just lonely. He's lonely and he's trying to find another vampire and he has to hide what he is, and so he's just sad and lonely. But once he finds Lori, he seems to be very happy. So I'll take that. I do like the trope of a vampire searching for centuries for their soulmate and then finding their soulmate. I do like that trope. That's the romance side of me. Tropes I hate. So this is an old trope. We have not seen it in quite some time. We saw it in Dracula Dead and loving it, but that was because it was supposed to be funny. But it's the trope of where the vampire literally rises from the coffin. Like stiff as a board, rises up. We have not seen that one in a while. Normally we just see it in a comedic way, but they used it in this one. It's pretty cheesy and it is not my favorite. All right, let's get to it. What you're all here for, the ratings. How scary or evil are the vampires of pale blood? As I said, the vampires in this story are the good guys. They don't kill anyone, not even Van, who totally deserves it. He killed 4 women. He deserves to die, but they do not kill him. They feed and leave you alive, just without the memory of feeding, so kind of like Vampire Diaries, we've seen that before. But if they wanted to, they could very easily kill humans. They fly, they teleport, they have psychic abilities, they're extremely strong, and they are immortal. They can change your memories or erase them. So they are not to be underestimated, but they are dwindling in numbers. So it's not like they have a whole bunch of them to rise up and wipe out humans. They're dwindling. And as he said, a few of them have gone mad. So these vampires get a 6 out of 10 stakes to the heart for how evil or scary they are. Nice job, Michael and Lori. How sexy or alluring are the vampires of pale blood? Personally, I do not find Michael or Lori to be sexy. However, this rating is not based on my personal opinion. We need to look at this, objectively. So, Michael clearly has some kind of allure. Lori is immediately drawn to him, but that could be because somewhere in her subconscious, she recognizes that he is another vampire. But Jenny is human, and she is also immediately drawn to him, takes him home back to her apartment, like within minutes for some sexy time. So clearly he's got something going on. He feeds from her breast, which is kind of hot, like bites her breast and feeds from it. He's clearly very sexual and obviously leaves you very satisfied because Jenny is madly in love with him the next morning and is whispering his name. We also see the man that Lori is pulling at the bar early in the movie, and he is very nice. So imagine my surprise when I did all the calculations and the vampires of pale blood actually earn a 7 out of 10 onks for sexiness and allure. They lose points because they will make you fall for them and then leave you yearning. They'll just disappear. Plus, Jenny's love/lust for Michael actually got her killed. So, but it's still a respectable sexiness score for Michael and Laurie, the love for the vampire lovebirds and soulmates. My thoughts. Okay, let's address the obvious flaw. How did they not know when they first met? How did they not recognize, oh, we're both vampires? I mean, Laurie is kind of suspicious, but still she searches the database. She searches his house. It's not until she sees this like old-timey passport that she's like, yep, he's a vampire. And he doesn't know until she vamps out. What? How? How do you have heightened senses and you don't recognize each other? I'm sorry, but obvious flaw. I don't understand that. And why is he called in for this police investigation? What kind of expert is he that the police are like, we need to get this Michael guy in here? What, does he have a business card that's like, call me for vampire murders? Why? Why did they call him in? None of this is ever explained. And we hear that Laurie and Michael have been exchanging letters about the case. One, that seems like not very secure, right? But two, letters from Europe to LA to back to Europe, like that's very time consuming. How many girls are dying while you guys are sending like snail mail? I don't understand. When I first saw this, I was way too young. I think I was like 13. And I remember thinking like it was this sexy vampire movie. But I also remember not completely understanding what was going on. So now I go back and rewatch it 30 years later. I still don't know what I'm watching. I don't. It almost feels like important scenes. Rain. Now it's raining. Oh my goodness. I'm serious when I tell you we had all 4 seasons this week. All right. It almost feels like important scenes were pulled from the movie in editing, and that's why it doesn't make sense, but I really just think it's bad writing. I do understand why this was straight to video. Anybody who's my age will remember the straight to video stuff. So you would go to Blockbuster and be like, what is this video? Because it was never in theaters, you never heard about it. Yeah, because it went straight to video. Even for the 90s, it's pretty cheesy. It was around the time that vampires were just becoming sexy. We had Lost Boys, and I think there was this like turning of, oh, vampires can be sexy. That's around the time where Embrace of the Vampire came out, and like these Skinamax vampire movies started to show up. That being said, it kind of missed the mark on being as sexy as I think it wanted to be. There's these weird like stop motion blurry effects put on some of the scenes that's just distracting. I don't understand what they were trying to do. It's very unnecessary. Side note, vampires, don't bite the boob, okay? Don't feed from the boob. It's mostly fat. There's some muscle in there, but you're not getting a lot of blood. Don't bite the boob. It seems really sexy, but I'm telling you, you're not getting anything out of there. Let's give credit where credit is due. The soundtrack is 90s-tastic. It's so good. I actually went to try and find it. It is not available. I even went onto Spotify. I did find the band that does most of the music, but the music from the movie is not on their Spotify playlist. So I'm going to keep searching. I'm going to find this soundtrack, and I'm going to share it with you guys, so stay tuned. The movie is free on Amazon Prime. It doesn't cost you anything to watch. I think that's fair, but if you decide to never watch it, you're not missing anything. I told you everything about it. Honestly, I could give or take this one. I will probably never watch it again. It's probably going to stick with me. I may talk about it here or there, but I'm never going to watch this one again. And that is Pale Blood, ladies and gents. Next week, I will be doing Priest. That is one that was very, very highly recommended and requested, and I'm finally getting to it. I will be doing Priest. So go find that one, check it out if you want to watch it before next week's episode. I'm going to wrap it up because the rain behind me is starting to get really loud and I'm afraid it's going to be picked up on the mic. So if you just heard it, I apologize, but I'm not going to redo this. I am going to actually make a second cup of tea because this was so good. And then I'm going to get to editing. So please, if you haven't, go check out my TikTok. Be in my Fanged family. Join my street team because I am so excited for this third book. I promise you it is so good and you're going to love it. So you're going to want to stay on top of when it's coming out and the cover and all that stuff. Meanwhile, I'm very excited about this Chariot card. I can't wait to see what March brings, not just for me, but for all of you. So I wish you wicked hugs and bloody kisses. Good evening. All right, so I got scared shitless by my daughter, and then a battery died, and then it started to torrentially downpour behind me. All in all, it's fine. We made it through. My throat still feels okay, thank goodness. But I need to get to editing. So I really meant it. I need to go. So I love you guys. Wicked hugs, bloody kisses, all that stuff. I will see you next week.